So let's look back at some of the highlights from part one of the race. The race having got underway earlier on this morning when the ambient conditions were nice and cool, but it all went the way of the Seas Motorsport car. Ran outside, picking up places in the early stages of the race, went Ian Loggy at the wheel of the sister car, whilst the battles ahead all started to unfold. There were problems early doors for one of the Ferraris. Damage to the front corner of it brought that number 33 Kessel Racing car into the pit lane early. They would ultimately finish part one in 10th position. Fights going on down through the order, including the number 91 car of Baron Racing, Michael Mack, bringing that car towards the checkered flag. Whilst in the early stages of GT4, it was the Greystone McLaren that was leading the way. The car having been started by Ian Campbell. A brief safety car period as a result of the incident that occurred. That, unfortunately, putting out the number 11 Kessel Racing car in the hands of Roberto Pampanini, the starting driver, in the early stages of the race. It was all done under braking. There wasn't contact, but as Pampanini speared sideways, there was contact with the barriers, and then the car also hit the outer wall as well, meaning that brought out the safety car, and it was also meant that the number 11 car was out for the weekend. Once the safety car came in, there was a flurry of activity in the pit lane, because any pit stops that are done while safety cars are out there do not count towards your tally. All the way through the race, it was really the number one Seas Motorsport car that was dominating the way. The only time they didn't lead the race was during the pit stop cycles, and whilst there was a brief overlap between it and its sister car. There was good squabbles going on as well. Dominic Baumann, SPS Automotive Performance, and their team looking to try and carve their way through, but the pressure was telling. Valentin Pierberg behind the wheel, allowing Ferraris to work their way through and gain the places. In GT4, briefly, the Aston Martin led, but up front, again, the Seas Motorsport cars going together. Eddie Cheever, who was a lap adrift, trying to unlap himself, squeezed his way past Ian Loggy, thought that he might gain a lap back, but as it was not to be. The continuing battle between the two Seas cars would see, regardless of who was behind the wheel, the cars ebbing and flowing. With subject to the driver combinations, they would close up on some laps, they would start to pull away on others, so the gap was always like a little piece of elastic. Close towards the end of the race, Tarabini almost chopped across the nose of Alessio Salucci. Alessio Salucci was struggling towards the end of his stint, and it would see the VR46 Ferrari drop his way down through the order, being passed by Michael Mack, and also later on towards the race being passed by Eddie Cheever and also Dominic Baumann. But on the whole, the race went to plan for the vast majority. There were several drive-through penalties. There was a little bit of contact towards the end of the race as the Century Motorsport BMW got into the side of Michael Mack or vice versa, bringing that Ferrari into the pit lane. But for the number one Seas McLaren, it all absolutely went to plan. They win part one of the 10th edition of the Gulf 12 Hours at Yas Marina Circuit, meaning they will start part two from pole position later on this afternoon.